Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about a very large winter storm, a dangerous one. It's going to be bringing in some areas a very heavy snow. As you can see, Nebraska is just getting the worst of it. Almost the whole entire state covered in winter storm warnings. A good chunk of Iowa, portions of South Dakota, and this could extend well into Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, both the mainland and the UP. You can see Colorado, Northwestern Kansas. So yes, many areas will be impacted by some potentially very heavy snowfall from this event. There's also going to be a severe weather aspect to this, potentially producing some tornadoes, hail, strong winds, and it could be a pretty chaotic next 24 to 48 hours. And then after this system, there's another one that could be even bigger, and that one could bring snow to areas that haven't seen it really at all this year. So let's get started. And again, I divide my regions or the video into regions. So skip to your region using the scroll bar below or using the description box, clicking on the blue numbers next to your respective region, and that should take you to the part of the video where I talk about your region. Let's start off with the Northwest and work our way towards the East. So again, the Northwest, unlike really most of the other areas, maybe the Southwest, you guys are pretty much done with the system. Especially, Oregon, Washington, you may be actually being impacted by a different system that you may think it's this one, but it's not. You can see tomorrow as we get into the early morning hours, there's a rain band that moves into Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, bringing more rain and snow. Not prolific amounts, though there could be some heavier areas of snow, especially in the higher elevated areas. And you can see this moves through Idaho, eventually into northern Nevada, into eastern Colorado, Oregon, and then into eastern Washington and southwestern Montana by the time we get into, let's say around late tomorrow, early Thursday. More early Thursday. You could see 6 a.m. And then this thing really starts moving into Utah, Idaho, but it starts petering out. You can see it loses its strength. Still, though, it's mainly snow as it is pretty cold. So just through the next 43 hours, again, it's a snowfall event that's not directly correlated with this system that I'm talking about in the main title. Though it's going to be the main action maker, you can see several inches of snow. But I do want to say that for northern Colorado, southeastern Wyoming, there will be the system snow that we're talking about. And there could be anywhere from 6 to 10, maybe even more inches of snow, because this is assuming a 6 to 10 a 10 to 1 inch snowfall ratio, and in reality it will be a lot colder. So a lot of this snow will be falling at a fluffier rate, colder temperature, so that 7 could be multiplied by 1.2 or 1.3. All right, and do note that you can see the Sierra Nevada picking up some snow, the Wasatch, the Bitterroots, and as I take this into time and show you the GFS, which gives us a little of a longer look, just besides Wednesday and Thursday and into Friday and Saturday, you can see that little system that moves in tomorrow peters out as it moves into the southwest, sets the stage for a massive storm across the northeast potentially, but you can see across the northwest you just have smaller systems that move through over the weekend and into early next week. Again, really quiet compared to what you have been seeing. Obviously, areas like Montana, Wyoming could actually in some areas be snowier than what you have been seeing because you guys haven't really been impacted by the recent pattern too much, and you can see that the snow will be favored towards more of the eastern northwest, if you will. Montana, Wyoming, you can see there's just many of these little clippers. Moisture starved, but nonetheless, one after the other, they do end up adding up. All right, and there you can see there's a snowfall forecast for 15 days out. Let's go look at the southwestern United States. Again, you guys have been absolutely bombarded with active weather for the past several days. And again, as I was saying, for the past 2 weeks not 2 weeks, sorry. This pattern's been going on for the past 2 weeks, but I've been saying for the past few days that this pattern is coming to an end, and this system that we have going on right now, if it's snowing or raining across your area in the southwest, maybe not California, but Nevada, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, you guys are dealing with kind of the last big storm, but you could see that especially for areas like Colorado and New Mexico, the worst is still ahead of you. I would say specifically Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, obviously California, Arizona. Most of this is going to be moving out in the next few hours, though you could see Colorado, Denver, northeastern Colorado really picking up a lot of snow into the overnight and into early tomorrow and through much of the day. day. And by the time things are all said and done, again, there could be some significant snowfall accumulations across these areas. Denver potentially well over a foot of snow. I do also want to note there will be a system again that I addressed earlier when I was talking to the folks that were in the Northwestern region, moving into the Northern Sierra on California, or on Thursday through California and into Nevada. This will drop some snow. Again, nothing incredible, nothing like, several feet of snow, though there could be amounts that reach, let's say 1 to 2 feet, which sounds like a ton, and it is. But for these areas, especially compared to some of the snowpack they have, which in some areas is in hundreds of inches, not feet, inches. This isn't terribly too much, though you can see in some areas, again, a foot is likely. So that is the forecast for the Southwest. I wanted to go through those areas relatively quickly, not only because I don't have that much time, but also because, again, most of the action will be going on here across the north central and south central United States, and just really anywhere east of the Rockies. So let's take a look at the HRRR model. It goes out to 48 hours, and this time it went out to 43 hours, and we could take a rather detailed look at what could happen across the next 48 hours here. And let's take a look at how this system plays out. So right now, if you were to take a look at the model, the radar, it's rather quiet. There's no big activity going on. We have yesterday's system spinning away, pretty much a dead wimp at this point. Though notice that as I put this forward through 8 p.m., 9 p.m. and into the wee early mornings hours of tomorrow, cities like Denver, again, maybe Wichita getting on some rain there, some thunderstorms, northeastern Kansas getting on some very heavy snow bursts, and then this thing quickly starts evolving into a massive snowmaker for Nebraska. The snowfall rates will be prolific, potentially 1 to 2 inches of snow per hour, especially as this thing intensifies and gets an increased moisture flow from the south. Notice Kansas City, eastern Kansas could be seeing a lot of rain out of this, and that's good. They are in a drought there. So 10 a.m., 11 a.m. in the morning, Omaha, Lincoln, sleet, snow mix at first, converting mainly to snow by noon, and then you can see most of Nebraska, North Platte, just getting hammered by this. As this rainfall spreads to the north, you can see that we see a profound area of obviously heavy rain and ice, and you can see that ice isn't necessarily freezing rain, but it's mainly in form of sleet. So at least there's that. It won't accumulate on power lines, but it's sleet nonetheless. You can see maybe areas in northern Illinois getting in on a burst of heavy snow before converting to rain. Though you can see Des Moines, Iowa, for example, central Iowa, also a mix of rain, snow before transitioning into snow. The heaviest, it seems, will fall just north of Des Moines, Iowa, into northern and central Iowa, South Dakota getting on some snow there, southern South Dakota mainly, and into southern Wisconsin also picking up quite a bit of snow. I would say Milwaukee, there's just going to be a little bit of mixing there, so amounts may be significantly cut in there. Do notice this thing eventually I'm doing a lot of jumping around here, but by the time it reaches late, really around 24 hours from right now, so again, this thing is impressively fast, right? So 24 hours from now where there's nothing going on, this thing's going to be full-fledged monster. I wouldn't say monster, but impressive winter storm, and you can see Minneapolis getting in on the snow around midnight, maybe a little bit before, and that continues, not as heavy, though still 3 to 6 inches as possible. Notice Wisconsin, Green Bay, Rhinelander, Madison, all the way into Marquette, Michigan. Mainland Michigan, at least the southern half, mainly rain, a little bit of snow mainly, maybe at the beginning, and then northern Michigan mainly snow, with a little bit of transition towards the end, but that precipitation will be gone by the time the temperatures warm up enough to produce rain. I do want to address the southern flank of this, so obviously through Missouri into Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, mainly thunderstorms. It could be pretty significant. Wouldn't say severe, though they will be, they could be severe towards especially where Nashville is, maybe Kentucky, Paducah, those areas, but for the most part, just strong storms with heavy rain. It'll maybe wake you up at night or early or late evening there, 9-10, and you can see that it's mainly turns into a rain event into Ohio. So nothing too exciting there for you guys across Ohio, Virginia, or West Virginia, Eastern Kentucky. Just a little bit of rain. But notice that as this thing spins away into Thursday, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., this thing's still going on across Wisconsin, the Twin Cities, the UP of Michigan, and then we could see some sort of a secondary. You could see cold front develop there, maybe some showers and storms across Ohio. The HRRR model is probably being a little too aggressive with that, though it's definitely a possibility, and we see some colder air move in. So by the time all is said and done, this is the depiction from the HRRR model, and you can see it shows a lot of snow in some areas, especially across Nebraska. I would not be surprised to see amounts approaching 20 inches plus, maybe even a 2 foot amount across isolated areas. Notice the Twin Cities 5-6 inches, but for the most part, this thing is a little inaccurate because it's again assumes a wetter snowfall than it actually will be falling at. So for a really accurate snowfall depiction, I want to show you guys a really cool thing. I showed you guys this yesterday, the National Weather Service weather forecast kind of in model format. And you can see that they still have the axis of the snow just south of the Twin Cities, pretty much square on with Green Bay, La Crosse, Wisconsin there. Around, again, 6 to 8 inches. In Minneapolis, I would say 4 to 6, maybe 7 inches. I would not be surprised to see this shift a little bit north. And notice that most of Nebraska, especially in the epicenter there, North Platte, potentially 1.5 feet. Again, maybe some isolated amounts of 2 feet if they get a prolonged banding in some areas. Again, impossible to predict this far out. Denver also potentially a foot of snow. And you can see the amounts continue into southern Canada as well. So that is that. Let's move on now into the south central United States, as this is yet another area that will be, let's say, it will be impacted by this system pretty significantly. And we have a HRRR model to look at, and this one does a really good job of predicting thunderstorms, or for the most part. And in this case, these areas are going to be impacted by thunderstorms. No snow for you here across these areas if you're watching, but notice Kansas could get in on a little bit of snow there, maybe initially. Texas Panhandle into the overnight hours today. A little bit of storm activity. Thunderstorms should stay mainly not severe, though. Definitely some stronger ones possible. Notice into Oklahoma City, especially north into Tulsa. Could be some rain tomorrow early in the morning as you're getting up for work or whatnot, school. You can see the thunderstorms beginning to explode across Arkansas, northeastern Texas, continuing across Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, and into Louisiana, maybe Dallas, Houston, picking up some rain. 9, 10, 11 noon time. You can see those storms are coming through. This is where they start becoming a little bit more severe. So up until this point, they're strong, heavy rain producers, but this is, especially along this cold front, is where some of these storms start becoming nasty little makers of potentially tornadoes, wind, hail, and you can see that is in that early to late afternoon hours, or early to mid hours. Quickly, again, moving into the late afternoon hours and early evening hours, you can see it develops into more of a line, but again, it will be rather disorganized, and that's not necessarily a good thing. There could be individual storms that are more prone to rotating tornadoes instead of just a linear structure, which would be more prone to strong winds. Regardless, you could see Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee through the day tomorrow. Good thing is, by the time midnight comes, you guys are done with this, but southeastern Missouri into Alabama, eastern Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, you guys are still in on this by the time it's the early morning hours. Thankfully, though, this will be weakening as it moves through these areas, so the threat will be significantly going down. But by the time all things are said and done, there obviously could be quite a bit of rainfall from this. It doesn't look like a prolific rain event. Maybe across a few areas there could be some flooding concerns, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some flash flood warnings. You can see there's a slight risk, so not enhanced. I do believe they probably will issue an enhanced by the time tomorrow rolls around. Even if they don't, you can see the slight is across a pretty darn large area, pretty much right across Mississippi there, bordering, I would say, 100 to 150, maybe 200 miles on each side of the Mississippi there, stretching into Texas as well, which is obviously in some areas a bit more than 200 miles. Notice Memphis, Jackson, Lake Charles, some large metros, population-wise, also pretty significant. So this will definitely be something that we will have to keep an eye on for. Again, biggest threat. You can see tornadoes are uncomfortably high, wind and hail. So I would say tornado and wind are definitely the biggest concern there. So, and again, it doesn't take a massive tornado to create headlines if it goes over populated areas. A moderate tornado, and that could really stir things up. So that is that for the south central United States. Good news is you guys are going to be done by the time pretty much tomorrow midnight rolls around, for the most part. So at least it's kept in the short term. Let's take a look at the Northeast. So again, the HRRR model does a good job in the short term. Sometimes when it's far out, like 40 hours for the HRRR, it starts doing a few funky things. Regardless, for the next few hours, especially pretty much all day tomorrow, you guys won't be really seeing any activity. There will be some rain that begins spreading to Pennsylvania, Virginia, Delaware, Maryland, potentially by tomorrow, late in the day. Most likely, though, all the way on Thursday, it will hold off the precipitation. Do notice potentially New Jersey, Long Island, southern New York. Again, you could see rainfall developing through much of the early morning hours on Thursday. And this is where we could start seeing some more cold air that's stubborn across central New York, maybe Massachusetts, especially where there's a snowpack. And you can see some of that snow could actually be pretty heavy. Again, how much of this is actually going to be snow versus rain? The HER model typically, when it's far out, does a poor job with it, but we'll have to wait and see. Coastal areas pretty much rain, and that's a guaranteed. And you can see it's going to be pretty moderate to heavy rain across the coastal areas through much of the day on Thursday. And if you take a look at a model like the GFS, you can see that it does show a relatively similar scenario. So again, rain, maybe a little bit of snow converting there towards the end. Coastal areas all rain, but you can see further north, southeastern Canada, large cities there, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, seeing some snowfall mainly out of this. Toronto, I would say probably rain. Then you can see again, this system it moves away the first part of it by early Friday into Maine and Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, but then potentially through the day on Friday, another kind of a coastal system tries developing. Nothing incredible, but that could exaggerate some of the snowfall amounts, making them a little bit more significant than they would have been normally. And you can see in some areas it could be even 6 to 8 inches. The National Weather Service, as of now, again, is still a little bit far away, but you can see they definitely include some darker colors there, so not be surprised to see an overall 4 to 5, 6 inch event into southeastern Canada, some heavier snow. But again, really nothing too bad, especially for what you could be seeing this time of the year. European model, very similar. You could see converting that into some of that rain, snow, and then developing that system, providing widespread light to moderate snow there. But again, by the time all things are said and done, its amounts are pretty conservative. Rainfall-wise, you could see for the coastal areas, it actually could be a decent soaking. You can see right there, maybe some 1 to 2 inch amounts. And upstate New York here into Pennsylvania, also likewise a decent amounts of rain and snow precip-wise. Total snowfall, just snowfall by itself, no rain. You can see also limited, but again, some areas, especially into southeastern Canada, upstate New York, Vermont, could see maybe even up to a foot of that snowfall. Let's go to the southeast, the last area I want to talk about. Thankfully for you guys, if you live across the southeast, you don't want any bad weather. This is not going to be bad for you. A little bit of severe weather towards the western areas here into the day on Wednesday, especially late Wednesday. You can see throughout the day, Wednesday, really nothing for the most part, but then we start getting in on some showery weather towards Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, late in the day, 6 p.m. rain. Showers, storms, again, some of this could be severe. Good news is by the time it reaches Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi in the night, 6 a.m., you can see there. So this is already pretty much a morning, but through the overnight hours it will be raining across these areas. But by the time it reaches Georgia, the Carolinas, this thing's significantly weakening, pretty much just bringing some showers, maybe some cloud cover, and in some areas won't even bring any rain for the southeast. And you can see there's not much cool air behind this thing, so not even a heavy rain event, so the southeast kind of gets spared. Again, some isolated areas towards the north and west, relatively speaking, could be seeing some heavier rain, but that is also pretty limited. So but don't get caught off guard. A line like this could stay put together a little bit longer than models are currently showing. It doesn't just seem likely for now. Again, I guess the dynamics and ingredients aren't overly supportive of a massive threat of severe weather and a long-lasting one. I do want to say one thing before I finish up this video. So we're dealing with this system right now, which is an interesting one. It's going to be impactful, but our next feature is this little guy, this little pretty much moisture-starved clipper that's going to affect the Northwest tomorrow. And this thing starts interacting with moisture from the south, which is abundant. We have a strong high pressure that starts steering up a lot of this moisture. The track of this is still undetermined, but you can see the GFS develops a larger storm into this upcoming weekend. It's again pretty significant, right? Especially as it gets towards the northeast. But if you look at a model like the European, it does a little bit more, a little bit crazier scenario. So again, there's that first storm we're talking about. There's our little guy, potentially some heavy snow, maybe into southern Kansas, Oklahoma. We'll have to see about that. And then you can see it expose into a rather intense storm across the northeast there, potentially a monster. So that's definitely interesting. And then in the long range, it shows yet another one. So we'll have to wait and see. For now, that is basically it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be catching you all on the next episode. See ya. Bye.